The Football Manager Touch series returns for its 7th entry on the Nintendo Switch, promising new features and refined gameplay to this long-running and very successful series. Is it a beautiful goal though, or should VAR take a look? Let's hope not. Anyway, thank you to Sega for the review code, and now let's find out. Let's begin then by looking at the gameplay and any new features for this new version. And for the uninitiated, Football Manager 2024 Touch is a football simulation game where you take on the role as a manager and attempt to build a team that ultimately achieves success. You'll be in charge of the day-to-day running of your club, although a lot of it can be delegated to your backroom staff should you wish, but if you want to, you can be involved in the training in terms of exactly what the players focus on, scouting, transfers, set-piece routines, tactics of course, and then you'll go into the game day scenario where the match will play out in front of you and you'll need to make any changes necessary to get the required result. Now, the main difference between the Touch versions and the main PC versions of Football Manager were that whilst they still offered a very similar experience in terms of exactly how things play out, the Touch versions were a bit more streamlined and took out some of the maybe more overbearing aspects of the full fat version, if you like, whilst not scrimping on the parts that fans wanted to really feel like a manager of their favourite team. This is still the case here, although some of those aspects are starting to creep into the Touch versions, and we'll look at that in more detail in a moment, but you will be getting a fully detailed experience should you wish to play these Touch editions. You have a whole host of leagues to choose from, thousands of players worldwide, and for the most part accurate team names, with a few exceptions where some clubs have obviously decided to not lend these details to the game. Manchester United in England being one example, and the game does its best here to try and still give as good an impression as it can as to which team this is. You can opt to have 5 different nations running at the same time in any one save game, and you can have all of the leagues available in those 5 nations to run at the same time, meaning that theoretically you could have about 15 leagues going at once from 5 nations, giving you a nice pool of players to choose from and expanding your options in terms of maybe doing a journeyman save of some description where you hop from country to country taking on new jobs. It's not as expansive as it is on PC, but that's to be expected, but the change to 5, which happened a couple of entries ago, definitely does improve your options. In terms of new features for this particular entry, first of all you have the new manager principles. This allows you to take on 3 key aspects of your management style that you will impress upon the dressing room, non-negotiables if you will, and you'll need to gauge how your players are adapting to your methods. There's also been improvements made to the training aspect of the game, with you having greater control of your players' pathways, especially in terms of your youth prospects, as you try to develop them from wonder kids into genuine world-class players. There's also more of an emphasis on set pieces here in terms of creating your ideal scenarios for both attacking and defending. For me, this felt a little bit half-baked so far. Maybe this is something that they'll improve in further iterations, but it does again just give you maybe a further level of control than you had before. Again, they've also improved the request system in terms of how you speak to the club's hierarchy, be it for maybe a new stadium or more transfer money, with you being able to put your demands across clearer than you could in previous versions of the game. Again, I always feel that things like this take a couple of iterations to really iron out, but it's good to see that they are starting to try and improve some aspects which before felt quite superfluous. Also new for this version was the fact that you can actually transport in your save data from Football Manager 23. There are 3 main game modes. Again, I haven't seen this before personally, where you have the more traditional Football Manager where you start the game with the club having all of its new transfers as per real life at the start of the transfer window, even if those transfers were completed late on in real life. You have a more realistic mode where the players will join their clubs on the dates they actually joined as per the real life transfer window, which I did try out. It was quite interesting, especially when you were starting to try to get your tactics across to a new squad, knowing that some of them will be leaving soon. It's there if you want to try it. And then you have the challenges mode that's been in every iteration of this so far, and for the most part they are the exact same challenges. It would be nice to see this bit refreshed, although I'm not sure how many people actually play it, to be honest. Now, the only one of the games on the Switch that I haven't played was last year's version, 2023, so some of the bits I'm going to mention now may well have been in that version, but having played the 5 before that, they certainly weren't in any of those, and that's the part of interactions with players, which in the full fat version has always been quite extensive. They've veered away from that on the touch versions for the most part, but they have introduced half-time and full-time team talks, quite simplified to what you see on the PC. Here it is literally just saying whether you're happy or not with your players, and you'll see their reaction. And you'll also have times where you need to deal with an issue with a player. It's not as extensive as it is on PC with fewer options, but I do feel it's a step in the right direction, and I do feel actually that these are areas on the PC version that are some of the weakest in the game. So I was slightly concerned to see that they were now in the touch version, but actually these simplified versions work quite well. I did also have one really strange bug with the game where at the start of a new save, within a couple of weeks into pre-season, my whole squad's work permits ran out and I had to apply for work permits for every single player. Some of my applications were actually rejected, meaning I couldn't use those players, and it happened to all of the other teams in the league too, and the managerial AI for those teams didn't even apply, meaning that they couldn't use most of their squad, and I had to start the game again because there was no point continuing. I started 3 or 4 new games after this just to test whether it happened again, and it never did. Very, very strange occurrence, something I've never seen in any version of Football Manager before, but it happened, so it's worth mentioning. Let's move on to controls. Now this is absolutely the crux of this touch version, because if this doesn't go right it can become a very frustrating experience, and I actually felt that over time up to 2022, the last one I reviewed, that whilst the games had got better, the controls had actually gone backwards slightly. Now having not played 23, I'm not sure about that one, but I can say wholeheartedly that in terms of this new 2024 version, they have been improved. It's the little things like just how much easier it is to move player icons with your fingers if you're swapping out players on the fly in handheld mode, something that could be quite fiddly in the older versions, to bigger changes such as having now a radial wheel that you can then use to choose exactly what action it is you want to take out when highlighting a player. It could be viewing their profile, making a substitution, or changing their role. It works so much better than it did before. When using a control pad, again things just feel a little more refined this time round. You have what's called section and item focus. So section is the bigger area of text, whereas item is something specifically in that area, and you can move between the two using the left stick and then move to specific items using the D-pad. Again, they did use something like this in the past, it just feels that bit better this time. Moving on to the visuals then, and of course I have mentioned some of this in terms of the UI. It certainly feels more comprehensive this time in giving you options such as the radial wheels that I mentioned, although I did feel that navigating some of the side menus which you bring up with ZL and ZR did feel a little more cumbersome than they did in the past. Almost as if they're squeezing so much information into those now, it's hard to find what you need at times even after a good few hours play. I do generally feel though that the UI does look very clean. I like the colour scheme they go for in these later versions, and there's also some accessibility options in the options menu such as colourblind modes for those like myself that do need these. If we move on to the match engine itself then, in terms of pure aesthetics or how it looks and plays, I didn't feel it looked much different to the last few entries, but it did seem to run quite a bit smoother than some of those earlier attempts on the Switch. It still looks quite awkward, some of the animations, especially things like the crowd, don't look great, but it's not really about that in a game such as this. It's more about giving you an overview of what's going on, visually of course, so that you can make the changes you need to make in order to get the outcome you want. That being said, I did see some nice little touches, such as certain individual players behaving as you would expect based on their real life counterparts. To give you an example from my team, Tottenham Hotspur, Kulusevski in the game does like to cut inside and curl shots in with his left foot. Very much are imitating real life there, so it's nice to see these details included. In terms of value, well, Football Manager 2024 Touch costs £39.99 and regional equivalents will be on your screen now. Now for this price you can get countless hours out of this game. If you have the stamina to play or you fall in love with the gameplay, you can put hundreds of thousands of hours into it, and that is not an exaggeration. I've done so myself in the past. I do feel that this particular version helps you to do that more than some of the previous versions on the Switch, owing to the fact that this is the best way it's controlled for me in all versions I've played so far. And I do like some of the new features, although it does very much feel more like evolution rather than revolution. It would be nice to see some of the features that are included from previous versions starting to be fleshed out a bit more, even if it meant not putting as many new features in. I do feel the game could do with some of these ideas being fully fleshed out in the future. Football Manager 2024 Touch gets a SwitchUp score of 80%. Thank you everybody for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do remember to leave a like if you did. Are you playing this year's version of FM Touch? If you are, who are you starting with? What sort of save are you looking to create? Please do let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget, if you are looking for eShop credit to pick this game up, you can use our website switchup.gg to get your eShop cards. Doing so will get you 5% back in cash back off your purchase price to use against a future purchase, but you'll also get an extra 5% in straight discount if you use the code SwitchUp. There's also a link down there to Play Asia if you're looking to import any games. No good for this game, of course, but if you are, use the link down below, use the code stated, and you'll get yourself 5% off of your order from there. A quick thank you to our patrons and our channel members for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.